and good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are around the world. I am Marcus Holmes, HR Passion Guy, and I'm excited to be here on yet another installment of Passion Fridays. As we go into this holiday weekend, I am sure because the world appears to be opening back up that many of you have probably planned to have an excursion. If you're not en route there already, you have vacated emails and Zooms in your mind. Drop in the comments if that's you, whether you're watching us via restream on LinkedIn Live, from which we are springboarding today, on Facebook Live, on the Marcus R. Holmes page, on Twitch TV, YouTube events, or IG Live. Drop us a comment to say, yes, I have already vacated, or maybe you don't want to go on the record saying that. I've already vacated in my mind the emails that I have to check, and I'm already on the beach wherever I'm going, from Alameda, California, if there's beach there. If you're going to be in Charleston, South Carolina, I know there's beach there, or Savannah, Georgia, or wherever you're going. Enjoy yourself and have safe travels. Make sure you wash your hands, and I would still advise wear a mask, even though, you know, the CDC says you don't have to wear one. Hey, do what you do. And I hope that you will click share and tag someone to join us in what I think is a great discussion, a little more centered around organizations maybe, but some facts that you might learn about the road between Juneteenth and Independence Day, which is what we will talk about in part. I will be using replay portions of a video that we did for a Juneteenth celebration, because I think the ingredients in the recipe that I give in that video are ingredients that you would want to have in your own organization, employer, and community. And also in that video, you're going to learn a little bit about some other interesting things, including some of Frederick Douglass's writing on what is the fourth to a slave. And I raised the question, what is Juneteenth to the free? And so in between those, I want to talk with you a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion, and I will put in parentheses access, which is a facet of inclusion, but I think it's worth raising, and belonging, which you hear so many companies are now saying, we have to have these efforts. We have to do, some were sparked by George Floyd and others who were brutally murdered. Some were sparked by the desire and need and cry for police reform. Some were sparked by the insurrection that happened on January 6th. But whatever the nexus was for your organization, your employer, revisiting diversity, equity, inclusion, I say access and belonging initiatives. I think there are some important lessons along the journey that we might make for milestones to ensure that our part. So click share and tag someone to join us. You'll also have an opportunity during this hour to be one of the first to show your interest in what I am pleased will be coming in the coming weeks, which is Passion Academy. That's right. HR Passion is designed an academy and is primarily for new HR professionals who have completed their coursework in college or have completed a master's in human resources and want to get into the human resources field and are thinking about things like certification and diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging, how to be an HR business partner and exert influence. We'll be talking a lot about that. And so there'll be four modules of content, and it will be reasonably priced for those of you that are entering the market. And there are a ton of opportunities out there. So you want to actually see what it is getting into some of those opportunities. Join me, the HR Passion Guy, with over 25 years of human resources experience and certified by the Human Resources Certification Institute and the Society of Human Resources Management, as well as a recent cohort graduate of the Hacking HR cohort, the very first, the inaugural cohort for HR hacking, which encompasses over 100,000 human professionals worldwide. Join me in that offering, and I will have a link where you can get an early follow us along the journey to launching and enrolling, and there will be a special benefit for you. And for those of you who understand that while the jobless claims are going down and there are tons of job opportunities, you're rusty, you aren't ready, I have another offering under HR Passion Academy for job seekers. So if you say, hey, there are tons of jobs out there, but I'm not great at interviewing, I'm not great at narrowing them down, I will get you on a path to a 30, 60, 90-day offer. And you can certainly get that for a nominal fee, and that will be released around that same time. So a couple great offerings being released from the HR Passion Academy. And I'm the HR Passion Guy. I'm going to go to one of the first video in just a moment. I'll give you a chance to click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion. I see we have someone, some folks joining us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Some folks on YouTube events. And so I just hope that you will click share. Some folks that are coming through Facebook, click share and tag someone to join us in this discussion. I'm going to go to the first piece of video that I want to share from that Juneteenth video. So some of this content today is pre-recorded, but I'm going to share a piece of that first video because I definitely want you to be able to get some context around this recipe that I came up with. You know, I started with my morning grits. For those of you that might eat grits, I believe that they should have sugar, salt, pepper. No, let me say it right. They must have pepper, salt, and grape jelly. I don't put sugar directly in them, but of course, grape jelly has sugar. So, and judge me, please do. But that's what I think goes in great grits. Well, what will go into a great journey in between Juneteenth and Independence Day? That's kind of where you can apply this recipe, whether you are an employer, a CEO, a small business, a community-based organization. I think these are important ingredients. So I want to share a little bit of that with you. And throughout today, I'll be sharing pieces of video with you from this very wonderful video presentation that we did on Juneteenth. And I will share this with you now. It's Juneteenth. And I wanted to share a recipe that I thought of would be great for Juneteenth. Now, I'm sure that many people are learning more these days about Juneteenth, especially since the U.S. has now officially recognized Juneteenth. President Joe Biden has signed a bill that was passed, I think, unanimously by the Senate and minor Republican dissent in the House on June 15th and 16th, respectively, that makes a federal holiday out of Juneteenth. And so there's been a lot of chatter about, you know, what does that really mean? And, you know, why is that important, if at all? In case you don't know, Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration, of the ending of slavery in the United States. From its Galveston, Texas origination in 1865, the observance of Juneteenth, or June 19th, as the African American Emancipation Day, has spread across the United States and beyond. And so today it commemorates African American freedom, and it emphasizes education and achievement. It is a day, a week, and in some areas a month that is marked with celebration, guest speakers, picnics, and family gatherings. It's a time for reflection and rejoicing. It's a time for assessment, self-improvement, and for planning for the future. Its growing popularity signifies a level of maturity and dignity in America that is long overdue. In cities across the country, people of all races, nationalities, and religions are joining hands to truthfully acknowledge a period in our history that shapes and continues to influence our society today. Sensitized to the conditions and experiences of others, only then can we make significant and lasting improvements in our society, as says Juneteenth.com. I want to share that, where that originates. And the general order number 3 was one of General Granger's first orders of business, was to read to the people of Texas. This general order, which kind of begins with, the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former slave masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existed And so as you see, it talks a little bit about what Juneteenth is all about. Now is a clip that I'm going to share with you because we have moved beyond Juneteenth, right? And we're heading into Independence Day. I want to share a clip with you from the speech of Frederick Douglass, what is July 4th or Independence Day to the slave. And I think it's important along the journey to have an understanding if you're going to go about the business of diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging, that you understand all of these milestones that we celebrate, how they land differently on different segments of your population, different segments of your workforce, and whether or not you are willing to be awakened to this and contend with it and be mindful of it as you go about your talent processes, as you go about retaining and attracting and onboarding and including people, that you understand the various lenses of empathy through which you should look. Again, I'm dropping in the comments on our platforms a link so that you can join us to learn more in the HR Passion Academy. Whether you're a job seeker or whether you're a new HR pro, there will be some diversity, equity, and inclusion information involved in that. So let's go to this next clip, which tells us a little bit about this speech that Frederick Douglass had, and a little bit about, we'll soon be talking about this recipe that you don't want to miss. Anything. So a few excerpts. By the river of Babylon, rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there, they that carried us away captive required of us a song. And they who wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. I'm going to go down to another part. For the present, Frederick Douglass writes in what is the 4th of July to the slave, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and cycling, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men. Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty, that he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans, dividing and subdividing a discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom? Speaking of it relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively, to do so would be to make myself ridiculous. offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him. What am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them in obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employment for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine? That God did not establish it? That our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought that which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? They that can may. I cannot. The time for such argument is past. And that's from Frederick Douglass's speech, What is the Fourth to the Slave? And that was another excerpt of that Juneteenth celebration video where I read a part, excerpts rather, of Frederick Douglass's What is the Fourth, July 4th, Independence Day to the Slave. And so, you know, in the last year, more than ever, it appears, we have seen, in part because of social media's power to show in an instant what is happening for 9 minutes and 23 or so seconds, the brutal, I will call it brutal murder of George Floyd and many others along that journey, not just George Floyd, but it's brought to our attention the systemic racism and inequities that we see in all systems in America and many throughout the world. So when we're talking about diversity, we're talking about recognizing the differences in people and their similarities, which I think are important, that would strengthen an organization, be it an employer, a community, and those aspects of diversity, if you will, include race, color, ethnicity, nationality, religion, socioeconomic status, veteran status, disability status, education, marital status, language, age, gender orientation, identity and expression, sexual orientation, mental or physical ability, genetic information, and learning styles. So it's broad and there are intersectionalities among it. But if you are an employer, you must realize and take into account that your Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, and I'm going to start with Black, have had a very different and varied experience throughout this nation's history. And your failure to acknowledge that and recognizes that could never bring the kind of diversity to your organization that will bring you the best business results. You have to acknowledge it. And so this theorem around critical race theory isn't to say that everyone is bad or everyone is good. It is to show you through lenses of empathy how people experience systemic racism and inequity, and what you can do as one organization or in your ecosystem of organizations, which would include your customers, if you're B2B or B2C, includes your vendors and suppliers. You have power within your ecosystem. And so to wield that power in the ecosystem, you have to be aware that there are people throughout your ecosystem whose experiences have been those of underrepresented and those whose voice has not been heard and mattered as it relates to their experiences. And interwoven in how society operates are those experiences. You have to have some awareness around that. So you have to also understand that just having a search committee, just having a DEIAB officer will not speak fully to the wrongs or to the equity that needs to happen within organizations, and will not speak fully to the voices in the organizations that are speaking without having been informed of this experience. Because we have a lot of people speaking, but not a lot of people listening to the experience of diverse voices. And so to create empathy, you've got to create a change in mindset in the organization that is aware that the experiences of diverse people are not the same as those of the majority. That doesn't make the majority bad people necessarily. What it says is that their experiences may not have lent them to see how the experiences of others show up and impact the way that they live, serve, and support organizations. And that's just diversity, really, right? Then when we talk about equity, okay, all of these underrepresented groups that I've mentioned, or these groups that are represented, don't have an equity stake in the organization as it relates to pay and training and career tracks and promotions and employee sentiment and innovation and collaboration. Their presence, their voices, their skills are not equitable. They're not regarded as equitable at an even playing field. And in part because the systems are built where there would be this uneven playing field. It would be the responsibility of the leadership of the organization to have a mindset shift and shift the minds and responsibility and accountability of its leaders to embed this equity into every aspect of the business. My suggestion is that you don't do that through a chief diversity, equity, access, and inclusion officer. You might, but that you use human resources as the true business partner that it's supposed to be to help you bring to the center of your strategy equity. And when you do that and you build this brand of equity, you attract those that seek equity and those that see it as the core of their values, and it springs forth in every area of your organization. Okay? I add to inclusion access because I say it this way. Inclusion is opening the door and allowing people to come into the room, to acknowledge their presence. But access means that everybody around that shiny glass table has a seat, and that seat gives them access to the CEO, to the leader, to the head of the organization, just as anybody else around that table. So everybody's sitting around the table. There are 20 people around the table, but the women and people of color never get invited to the country club. They never get invited to those private affairs where there are conversations and real decisions are made. They're at the table, they're present, you see them, you hear their voice, and you might even discount it, or they might have a good idea. But when you want to hear more about the good idea, they're not invited into the inner circle for those conversations. That's access, my friends. And I call it out because I think it's important. We can say we're including you in decision making. We're including you at the table. But the reality is that at the table, there are subgroups of people who make backroom, boardroom decisions. It always has been, and I don't know if it always will be, but there is a private country club. And until you're willing to give access to that coveted club, you have truly not done inclusion. You have, for the face of the organization, people around the table who look diverse and who might have diverse thoughts and opinions. But you're not truly hearing those opinions unless you're willing to give them access to you and give access to the decisions that only you can make. There, you are beginning to give the access that gives real function, real power, real authentic and transparent power to inclusion. It's great to include people. I'm going to include somebody in the employee engagement committee and make sure it's a diverse team. I'm going to include voices. But until you give them access to your ability to make decisions, their voice, their opinion, their diverse thinking, then you really haven't achieved inclusiveness and not on that path to it. And that's why I wanted to stop and talk about this Juneteenth, where our president has signed it into law from legislators at their behest to some degree, the federal holiday for Juneteenth. How many organizations are going to follow suit? Now, a few did that next day, but how many are going to follow suit and give it the same rise as they give to Independence Day? You know, Independence Day is when we won our independence from the British, but we were still 3/5 a person. And so Independence Day is not the celebration for people of color, particularly African Americans who were enslaved and brought here on boats from Africa. It is not a source and sign of their freedom. They have never truly been made to feel American. So one of the ways you might do is have discussions between Juneteenth and Independence Day that kind of reconcile the two, where people have a safe, emotional safety and psychological safe space to be able to discuss how they feel and share across diverse lines, as I've mentioned earlier, what their experiences are with Independence Day and with Juneteenth. From Galveston to Crispus Attucks and everything in between. Then you are on a path to understanding what celebrations would be important and significant to your employee base. How do they feel about the company picnic that happens around Independence Day? The granting of time off around that holiday versus the Juneteenth. How many organizations celebrated Juneteenth or knew about it before this last latent push? And that is not the end all and be all for many African Americans, because we still feel that there are reparations still owed to our people. So a holiday does not pay us off even at double time. And you have to be willing to hear that and willing to understand where people are coming from. It's pressing us to create centers, cubicles, teams of empathy to understand that what you are celebrating is really something that lands very differently on other people who bring value to your organization. I'm going to bring up this last clip that talks about this ingredient. I am a foodie, for anybody that knows me, and I use that foodiness because I like to try different, when I'm feeling like cooking, try different ingredients. I have a 22, will be 23-year-old that I'm so proud of. I'm so proud of who Autumn Nicole is. And she's a graduate of University of Michigan, graduated during the pandemic. And so we haven't had the full graduation experience for her, but she's working now and planning to go to law school when she can go full time. Listen, I'm a parent. Wherever she's going, I guess I'm going. When she can go full time as a law student in person. And I am just so proud of the young person that she has become. And in celebrating, I got off thinking if you're a parent, you understand. I am a parent because my dear sister Adrienne passed away when Autumn was 9. So I'm co-parenting with her dad, right? A whole journey in itself. So I got lost in that moment of glee. Parents will understand if you have children. But I want to hand to her, I want to hand to her a better world. A world in which she has fair access. Though I think she's had great access, I think fair access means that everybody gets a chance. And being a foodie, I've taught Autumn how to cook everything that I know how to cook, from butter beans to chitlins. I know some people are cringing right now. From spaghetti to smothered pork chops, from hog head cheese, that's right, made at home from scratch, to baking and basting a turkey, and dressing and mac and cheese and many other things in between. Chicken Alfredos of all kinds from scratch, right? And that's because I had two parents who were Southern folks from Mississippi who could cook. Anybody that knows them knows that they could cook a storm up, I call it. And so they passed down that tradition of cooking to me, and I passed it down to Autumn, even though now I don't have as much a reason to cook, even though she thinks that I do. She knows how to cook. I often post on some platforms about my love for food. I absolutely love food. And on my journey of being careful around hypertension and diabetes, which both run deeply in my family, I have to pivot and be careful about the foods that I eat. But I'm always testing out different ingredients to see how those different ingredients go. And so I thought about this one ingredient, this one recipe, and I'm sharing it with you. So get your pens and paper out. Get your pens and paper out for this recipe. You don't want to miss it. Okay, looks like we're having some slight technical difficulties with that wonderful video. So I am going to proceed, but the video has several wonderful ingredients that you would need to include in your recipe for diversity, equity, access, inclusion, access, and belonging. You definitely have to include all of the ingredients in them. And the first ingredient in that is amalgamate the who-ness. And if you're talking about amalgamate the who-ness within the Black or African American diaspora specifically, It's defining who we are. You know, there are intersectionalities. There are Black biracial people. There are Black women. There are Black elderly people. There are Black disabled people. There are Black LGBTQIA plus with gender identity and expression people included. There are Black people with public benefit status or learning disabilities or differently abled people. So there's intersectionalities among them. And so you find the who-ness of who you are and you amalgamate that. You merge that to look at what are the differences, what make you diverse, and what make you the same. And you write down all of the things that are common to you, right? So if it were a certain kind of cake, we know base to that cake, you're going to need some kind of flour. Hopefully, I know there are people who make gluten-free kind of cakes. You're going to need something that's going to make the cake rise, right? You're going to need some flavoring to the cake, right? You're going to need some salt, some sugar in that cake, right? So there are some basic ingredients that define the who-ness of a cake, right? And you write all of those things down that you have in common, right? To define the who-ness, and then layer in the things that make you different. It would be the same in your organization. What are the values and competencies that you have in common? What are the shared beliefs and hopes and fears that you have in common? And write those down. And then layer in all of the differences, all of the intersectionalities and differences that make you diverse. That's an ingredient, amalgamating the who-ness. If you aren't willing to say we're an organization that has 2% Black people, if that's your case, and I had a company with which I worked that there were only 2% Black people, you have to be able to articulate what that who-ness is. What are all of the different aspects of who you are, and merge the commonalities while layering in the differences. And that's the first ingredient. That's the base. An organization must define and amalgamate its who-ness. Why are we alike? What do we have in common? And how are we different? Then I say after that, you have to organize. You organize in some fashion. Maybe it's employee resource groups. Maybe it is just things that you have in common. And you organize around the things that you have in common. Some people say argue this step should happen later, but I say happen earlier. Once you have built the momentum of recognizing the diversity, then you organize. Organize around that. And organizing will look differently for every organization. It will look different for every company. Do you organize for your talent community around mentorship, people who are over 40? But you organize. Next thing I think that you do is you strategize. Why don't you strategize first? I love it. Thank you for asking. I think you strategize because you want to get the buy-in of the people that are involved in this who-ness. You want them to buy in because it's theirs. You want them to become part of it, right? And one of the greatest ways to get them to become part of it, to get us to become part of it collectively, is to help to include us, give us access to building the strategy. Strategy building can be difficult or easy, depending on how willing and open you are to hear opinions different than yours that might make a better product. So the strategy could be around economics, right? For an organization. How do we use the who-ness that we've amalgamated and organized to make a better product, to become more innovative, to become more collaborative, to drive business results, so that at the end of the day, our end users, our customers get a better deal, a better product, a more efficient product, a more cost-efficient product, something that's more effective. How do we design it? How do we build it? So with design thinking as a methodology, potentially, you bring those that you've brought in through the amalgamation and organization to help build strategy for business decisions and goals. It requires a mindset shift that they are we, and our thriving requires their best buy-in. Okay. Next, I say you mobilize. Well, why didn't you mobilize earlier? And what's the difference in mobilize and organize? I think mobilize happens after the strategy because now you rally people in an organized fashion around the objectives, the plan that you're going to implement. That's where the mobilization is. Now we have a plan, and who is best situated to help us effectuate this part of the plan? That's what I call mobilization. It's getting the people already involved who help to build the process to say, now this group of people go well with this part. Does everybody agree? These people go here. And you're at the get ready, get set. This is the get set part before you go. You're mobilizing them with more than just impassioned and inspirational speeches, and messages. What you're doing now is you're giving them direction and making sure they have all the tools, support, and resources to go. You mobilize them about a part of the plan that they're going to be most interested in and most able to affect. And you clearly and measurably call forth to them, spell out to them, if you will, the tenets of this plan, right? Okay, that's in the mobilization. And then the last thing that I think you do after you mobilize, of course, you're going to definitely have to monitor any kind of plan if you're thinking of project management. But the last thing you do is vote. Vote? Yep. Vote, I say, because you're thinking of the broader sense in communities and collectives. But within the organization, vote should also mean voice. Employees, leaders, managers, supervisors, everybody should have a voice to say how well this mobilization is going and how can we improve it. They're part of the monitoring through giving voice to employee sentiment. They are synthesizing customer feedback and making a vote on it. Hey, 25% of our customers are having this experience with our new product. Here's what we should vote to do. Here's my voice on what we should do. Here's how I've gathered allies and lobbied people so that we do this. There has to be some democratic process that allows feedback that will be heard and potentially used. All feedback can't be implemented, right? But the feedback that makes sense where the voice has been raised is something important that you would share. And after you've layered all of that batter, because believe you me, when you start to mobilize, the heat will rise. You don't have to even worry about turning the oven on for this one. The heat will rise. And when you mobilize, it will rise. Okay? But you're going to need to rinse, wash, and repeat that bowl and keep doing it over and over again, each time making the measurements, the stirring, the thickening better each time. So it is amalgamate the who-ness, organize, strategize, mobilize, and vote or voice. Rinse, wash, and repeat. Or refine, start again, and do the same steps improved. That's the ingredient that you should implement on your journeys from Juneteenth to Independence Day, and wash, rinse, and repeat as you go throughout the employee life cycle, the organization life cycle, that you embed these things in everything you do. That's one of the things that you do to change mindset. Mindset does not change itself, but actions that are rewarded and recognized, and vital behaviors that are expected, required, and for which people are held accountable are what will move the mindset of people. You can't change people's hearts, but you can influence them to change their behaviors by building a culture from Juneteenth to independence, where everybody's varied experiences, brilliance, flaws, and blemishes are recognized, leveraged, improved, strengthened, and utilized for the best business case, which is an organization that is diverse, making an impact in the world for its customers, constituents, and stakeholders. If you'd like to get a little more information on this diversity, equity, access, and belonging, and you're a new HR professional, boy, have I got a product for you. It's the HR Passion Academy, and we are soon going to be debuting it. It is going to be online, mostly video-based. There will be an opportunity to have part of that learning with me directly, but most of it will be video-based and recorded-based content that you can go back and watch in 4 modules and watch over and over again. And if you are a job seeker and you are in this, you're saying, hey, there are tons of jobs out there, but I don't know how to get to those jobs. We'll also have You is the product. You. How do you get to your next job offer in 30, 60, 90 days? Both of those products, they are products, will be available to you soon, and we'll be doing a launch to let you know. But you can click at the link in the comments that has the talk book at Human Resources to leave your name and an email address. You'll get a free PDF on critical race theory, which you'll hear a little bit about in our diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging offering, which is a part of the Passion Academy. So that's free to you to have. And I just want to tell you a couple of the things that are in this module. There is a module called You in both products. In the HR Professionals, it's talking about influence, and it's talking about how you navigate in business partner relationships. And some of the lessons, some of them very hard lessons that I've learned over these 25 years will be shared with you. And a general HR university that will give you some insights into various areas of HR University, especially if you're looking to sit for the HRCI exam or the SHRM exam. These scenarios and practice exams and HR examples will be great information for you to have. Again, there is a DEIAB imperative that you will have, which will include a free spreadsheet of how you might set up if you're an HR department of one, or if you're new to diversity, equity, inclusion, how you might begin to monitor various diversity and equity goals and help to embed it in the mindset of leadership, which is a part of that influence, and a small module on project management, which I think will be important for anybody who's working in HR, because a lot of the work has become project-based. And the job seekers, starts with you and how you hold yourself accountable to disciplining yourself for the next position, and how you carry forward emotional intelligence, and how you polish your presentation of you. It's a module on resume and research, and how those two go hand in hand when you're applying to various organizations, and a few quick tips and tricks in that. How you network, and how you increase your net worth through your network, and how you connect to people in organizations where you've designed or researched rather that you want to be a part of. How to set up yourself for interviews and what you can expect in an interview, and some tools and techniques to craft your responses that show up as the authentic you, so that you're not nervous about how to respond to the questions. You'll have a proven formula to be able to do that. And then lastly, how do you close that deal? What do you say in closing that deal to ensure that the offer is the right one for you? And so again, those two offerings will be coming very soon. And if you're interested in getting a little bit of a sneak peek or getting a little bit of an opportunity to have some information, click that talkbook link that's in the comments. It's 12:53. It's been a great Passion Friday. I'm going to end it slightly early today. I hope that you have gained some insight and will click this share button, whether you're on IG Live, whether you're on YouTube events, Twitch TV, Facebook Live, or if you're here on LinkedIn from which we're emanating. Click that button now and be able to share that content widely. We will see you next time. Have a grateful weekend. Don't forget the Gratefulness Journey Everyday book is available now on Amazon. Get it now. It's a part of the summer reading series. And we hope that you will help us to spread the word about gratefulness. And there'll be a small excerpt of gratefulness in the HR Passion Academy. I'm Marcus Holmes, the HR Passion Guy. Thanks so much for being here. And we hope to see you soon.